Hello, I know I just recently posted my largest ever book haul, I believe, at 76 books just a couple weeks ago. Your time, my time, it was a week ago. And I'm back with 23 more. So I said at the end of that video, you know, if this inspired you to get rid of books, let me know. Well, I inspired me to get rid of more books. And most of these were actually books on my shelves. So I said last time that I went through boxes that I had of books still in storage over, I'm pointing over here because that's where they were. As of you watching this video, I will either be in the process of moving or already moved, and that's what inspired to get rid of a lot of books. And so I found 23 more that I also am like, you know what, if I'm being honest with myself, I want to get rid of these. I also have, these books are on the chopping block that I'm going to put at the end of this video as well, that I didn't get rid of, but I'm thinking about it, which also kind of means that eventually they will be gotten rid of. Likely if I move and they can't fit on my new shelves, because I'm getting rid of these shelves and buying new ones for my new space that are going to look better and be better, because these big clunky IKEA shelves, as good as they are for when you have a lot of room, aren't good when you don't. Yeah, I've moved on from these, and the books have to fit the new space. And like I said in the last video, which again, like I said, is linked, I really want my bookshelves, and I have for some time, wanted them to be very representative of who I am. So the books that I'm keeping are going to be books that sit very highly in my feelings. That's right. That's what I said a lot in the last video, and some of you made a joke about like, take a shot every time she says in my feelings and you would be dead, so don't do that. But that is where this is coming from, is that these books do not sit highly in my feelings. There are some shockers on here, let me tell you. I mean, kind of like the last time. I feel like it's a new era and I am letting go of things that do not serve me. Or in some of these cases, I'm like, these books are totally great and fine. I'm not going to reread them though, and other people can read them, you know, if I get rid of them. So yeah, at this point, I know I mentioned last time that I was going to be selling a lot of these books on Twitter. I will do the same with these, but anyway, let's get into it. First is one that I didn't necessarily want to go, but I think it's okay, and that is Old Man's War by John Scalzi. So I like this series. This is a series I plan on continuing. This is a science fiction series in which people over the age of, I think 70, I think it's 70, get enlisted in the army potentially. They can get like drafted and end up basically getting like not put into new bodies, but like they become young again, but they're like, they have the minds of like 70-year-olds, and they're the ones that are going to like fight this intergalactic war and everything, and I really liked it. These books are so common that I can get them from a library. I do want to keep reading them. I might even audiobook them. I think this is a fairly, like, at least like a 4 or 5 book series, if not more, and I do want to read them. But I think a big reason I was keeping these on my shelf, and I'm saying this to you so that you guys understand when you're doing this, is I was like, oh, I want someone like to see that and like know I'm a sci-fi fan if they see it on my shelf. Stop it. You don't, no, you don't do things for other people like that. Ew, no, you don't need that. So I'm not doing that. This does sit like fairly, I'm already starting. I do like this. I do plan on still reading these, but I haven't gone to pick this series up since, I think I read these in like 2014, 2015, read this first one, so I can do the library for this. It's fine. I'm moving into Chicago. I'll have access to the Chicago library system that will undoubtedly have these. It's okay. Then we have Rebel Rose by Emma Thoreau, and this is one that I realized I was gonna read it. I totally planned to read it, but I was like, I have not been into fairy tale retellings that are grim fairy tale retellings in quite some time. I used to really love them. I had this soft spot for them, so that when I still see them, I tend to be like, oh, and especially Beauty and the Beast. Bella's like my favorite Disney princess, one of my favorites. I have a lot. But I would say she's my original favorite from when I was a child. She was my favorite. So I was like, but I'm just not into YA grim fairy tale retellings. Not that this is quite that. This is more of a historical twist on it, but I think someone else would enjoy this more than me, and it will probably be a very long time before I read this because I'm prioritizing other things on my shelf. So like I mentioned, I think, was it in the last Unhaul? Possibly. But when I was talking about retellings, I was basically saying that I'm not really interested in YA fairy tale retellings these days. It's much more like adult fantasy retellings that are not grim fairy tales, like other folklores and stuff. So that's the reason that this is going. Then this won't be totally shocking because I just did a video on these books recently that I'll link on the screen. And that is Queen of the Conquered and King of the Rising by Case and Callender. This series, like the first book I did really like. The second book I didn't like, and I have like a lot of sort of things to say about it, so I'll link the video, the review. It's basically a series that I'm like, I will never reread this. It wasn't for me. It did what it wanted to do, but like I don't know. Like I don't want this, but I think other people reading this would be good. Good idea. If they know what they're getting into, great, fantastic. So that's why I'm getting rid of these. They don't need to hang out on my shelf when like I literally don't know when I can recommend these personally, but someone else may enjoy them. So then we have Melokai by Ellen Bernert. This is actually a book that does sit very highly in my feelings and nostalgia. I have talked about this before, that I read this right before I had cancer. I mean, I actually had cancer while I was reading this, but didn't know it yet. This is a historical fiction about a girl in Hawaii that is in the last leper colony in Hawaii, right around when they're being like colonized and everything, I'm pretty sure. And her experience of illness and isolation, everything really hit home, especially when like directly after reading this, I had my cancer experience and had everything going on there. So this means a lot to me. And also I read it because my dad recommended it to me. So he really likes this and has read the second book in this like series as well. So I'm probably going to give it to him, honestly. But I still really enjoy this, but like it just doesn't fit. I mean, I don't know. I say I want shelves that embody me, and this definitely does, but I think it also is like, I don't know, I feel like it fits more here at this house. Like I don't want to have this book leave this house, even though I didn't read it in this house, but I read it because of my dad. And like putting it on their bookshelves like feels more correct. There's a vibe here that makes a lot of sense. Then we have a book that I've been holding on to, and I always tell people not to do this, but I really thought I was going to be the exception to the rule that I tell everyone else. And that is European Travel for Monstrous Gentlewoman by Theodora Goss. This is actually the second book in the series. Look at how chonky she is. And I didn't get the first book in the series, didn't get around to reading that. And it's basically like a historical fiction, reminds me kind of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but with women. All women, because there's a couple women in there too. Like that is my jam. I loved the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie. It's in my trash pocket. I love it. It's bad, but I like it. So this felt like that, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get that first book, I'm gonna read it. No, you're not. I don't read a lot of historical fiction, even though this is fantasy. These chonky historicals with their teeny tiny text. No, I am not gonna do it. So if I do, I will get it again. Just again, I'm taking my own advice. I will get it again. But in the meantime, this is like the size of 2 books. And I haven't read it yet, and I won't be able to until I get the first book in the series, which who knows when that will be, because I've had this since probably 2017. Let's see when it came out. 2018, but I could have gotten it in 2017 before it came out even. So yeah, it's been a minute. It doesn't need to go with me now. Then we have Crier's War by Nina Varela. This is a book I liked just fine. I think it was a solid like 3.75 to 4 stars. It is a sapphic romance between a human and like an android, almost like a magical android character. And in this world, the androids are in power, not the humans. And so we have like this sort of sci-fi vibe. Rebel falls in love with the ruler because the android is like the princess and everything. And this is the first book in this sci-fi duology. And I liked it just fine, but I haven't picked up the next one, and I might still. But I don't really need to keep this one on my shelf because, again, not a book of my feelings. It's just fine. I can still recommend it. I still remember it as like sapphic romance, all of that. But someone else could have this, especially this is the Owl Crate like signed edition. Someone else could have this and enjoy it even more. So yeah, that's kind of some of the reasons getting rid of it too. It's like they're just fine for me, especially with limited shelf space. You gotta prioritize. Here's another one that I just made the decision. I just actually took a couple books off my shelf right before filming this because I was back and forth about it. But that is the Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. This is a series I actually really enjoy. I mean, I've only read the first book, but I always have these intentions to read the next books. I just don't own them. I will probably get them from the library. But this is a dark, almost like gothic fairy tale, like grim fairy tale inspired retelling where this girl is basically being like chased by these fairy tale, like dark fairy tales that her grandmother wrote about, turns out to be an actual place, and you know, kind of discovers her connection to all of that and everything. So I really dig it, but I don't think I need to keep it around my shelf. I think I've gotten past the point of keeping books in series that I'm still going to continue but don't love. I want to love them if I'm going to keep them. I don't need to keep them just to be like, remember, finish this, because I kind of feel like with some of these that I would finish it and then be like, okay, and now I'll get rid of it. And it's like, well, why'd you just collect all those books to then get rid of them, you know? And also, this is another special edition. I don't need special editions. I'm fine with them. Some of them are very beautiful, but like I'm not a collector of special editions like other people are. So again, when I know I have something that like another person's gonna value and like cherish so much more than me, I'd rather they have it than me. Actually, this is like one of the most shocking piles because there's a lot of books on here that like I genuinely do like. but I just don't need to keep them. The older I get, and the more I'm on booktube, and it's not even like an anti-capitalist, anti-consumer mentality, although like I have that in some ways, but I just like, I personally don't want to have a giant collection, especially in my new place. If I had a den, would I be willing to maybe keep some more books? Maybe, but that's a whole example of your priorities change over time depending on the current environment that you are in. And my current environment is going to be a smaller, not like micro, but like a smaller apartment. And I want to have a curated collection of books. Am I going to feel kind of weird after years of having these like giant shelves? Maybe, I don't know. But like even this year I've gone down from having, I used to have 3 big shelves and 1 little one to only having 2 and a little, and they're not even all the way full. So yeah, I'm downsizing. I'm prioritizing. I like that eclectic minimalism lifestyle. Anyway, the next one is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. This was good. I enjoyed it. I think like a 4-star, but again, another one of those historical fantasies that just don't hit me the same as other fantasies. This didn't sit in my feelings after. I remember it just fine. Was supposed to be more of a portal fantasy, and it was, but they weren't going through as many portals as I wanted. I wanted some more portals, and there was more just like historical fantasy, and I'm like, no, 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 give me portals to other worlds, and we just didn't get a lot of that. So there are other books that I think do that trope better for me. That's why I'm getting rid of this one. But I still plan on reading Once and Future Witches by the same author. That is still on my TBR. And we have another old favorite, and that is The Archived by Victoria Schwab. I think the second review I ever did on my channel, possibly, if you want to go back and look. But this, I loved this, and this is very much a book that sits in my feelings. I think I gave it like 5 stars. I don't know if I would on reread, but I don't plan on rereading it. This is about a character that goes between life and death. She basically, like, they're not ghosts, but they're basically like ghosts, can sometimes get free from like the ghost library, and she has to make sure that they like stay where they are, and I really dug it. But the series is never going to finish. Maybe it will, now that Victoria Schwab is getting more and more famous, but she keeps saying that like the series wasn't popular enough to ever finish. There's supposed to be a 3rd book, and it's never been released. The 2nd book is out, but like didn't do well, and I take it like, you know, it doesn't have a conclusion. So I'm like, I don't think I'm going to continue with this. And this is fine as a standalone, but I don't plan on rereading it. And I'm not going to forget that The Archived is a book about going between life and death. I've talked about this book numerous times. I used to keep books on my shelf, as I've mentioned, to remind me of them. And now I don't even look at my shelves. I just look on Goodreads and like what I've read, because I have gotten rid of so many books that I have read. So I just reference Goodreads or like my previous reading spreadsheets from every year. So yeah, I don't need to keep this, but man, she had a good run. I liked having her on my shelf. She was an OG. Then we have The Deep by River Solomon. This is beautiful. This is a great novella that talks about the themes of slavery and colonization, and basically is the story of the people, like the legend that slaves that got thrown overboard and drowned turned into mermaids. That is a common folklore. And so this is, you know, kind of running with that, and is really awesome. I'm not going to reread it though. And if I do, I'm actually going to reread it on an audiobook, so I don't need to have a physical copy, and I would love someone else to read this because it is really good. But again, like this having to collect everything is not so much a thing for me, and like passing them on to other people is more my jam these days. So I would love someone else to read this. Very similar feelings to This Is How You Lose the Time War. I know that those 2 books going are like, but it's again not because I don't like them, and it's not that I like won't remember them, you know, because they're going, but again, I think someone would like genuinely like to have this in their collection in the way that I'm like, I'll just kind of skim over it. Like some of these books I love having. Some of these that I like read, especially because this one didn't hit as deep for me as some people. It's a sapphic romance between 2 rival spies who are in a time war, and they communicate through letters and stuff, and it was just fine for me. Again, if I listened to it on audio, maybe I would have liked it more. I don't know. But not when I plan on rereading. And if there's no odds of me rereading, I don't really plan on keeping them. We have another one I've had on my shelf for a while, and that's The Demon King by Cinda Williams-Chima. This is a series that I still plan on reading. It's a YA fantasy series. Cinda Williams-Chima is very popular as far as like a traditional YA author, like, you know, like the beginning of YA kind of thing. And I plan on reading the series, but I can get it from the library. I discovered I can get it on Kindle from my library, and so I'm going to do that, because in the years since I've read this, I have never gotten the next book in the series. It's been on my wish list since I read this one, but it's never ranked highly, so I never like end up getting it for birthdays, Christmas, things like that. So I'm probably never going to, and so it's just sitting here like waiting for the rest of the series for what? Again, I can read it from the library. The library is an important tool for readers. I can utilize that. Then we have The Calculating Stars by Robinette Kowal, and this is actually a book that I read on audio. This is an ARC version, I think? Yeah, this is an ARC version, so I'll put it in my little ARCs for trade pile. But this is sort of like a Hidden Figures, women in space program, lady scientists. It's called the Lady Astronaut series, and I dig this book a lot, but audiobook. And the author reads the audiobook, and she's a really good audiobook narrator. So if I want to continue with this series, I'm going to do the audiobook. So again, I think I kept it because I was like, here's my little sci-fi collection. I'm like, you don't need to have a little sci-fi collection. It's like, you have, this is your sci-fi books. Like, you have, I mean, she's not, but like, you have a number of, you're fine. You don't need to keep certain books in certain genres just for like, to have a section to say like, look, I read sci-fi books. It's fine. So yeah, getting rid of her. Still like it though. Then we have Winterwood by Shea Earnshaw, and if I'm being honest, I kept this because of the cover. The cover's beautiful. The cover and the blue pages, like this is an Owl Crate edition. It's stunning. It's very witchy. It's totally my vibe. However, like, I'm not going to reread this. Someone else would love to have it. Again, the special edition kind of thing. It's a witchy book, witchy powers, but Shea Earnshaw's books always have like such potential and never quite hit the mark for me. They're always like just solid like 3 stars. So does this feel very like Halloween? Yes, and I think I read it last Halloween possibly. Maybe even before that. I don't remember. But it's fine. It's fine, but it can go, you know? Like, I feel like I'm getting more and more ruthless as I do these unhauls, but like, it doesn't, is it beautiful? Yes, but I don't collect books just for their beauty. I used to, but I don't need to do that anymore. I have other things. I have plants now. I think I've moved the collect the beautiful things into plants. You gotta replace one with the other. Like, there's no good or bad to that. That's just a neutral thing that happened. Similar vibes. Witchwood by Taha Mafi. This, again, I really love this cover. It's beautiful. It's stunning. It's so gorgeous. But I didn't love this. Of her middle grade stuff, this is my favorite of the 2 that I've read, I believe. But I don't love middle grade. I'm not a middle grade reader. It's not a genre that I reach for, and again, someone else would appreciate this. Possibly a child in the middle grade years. Who knows? So yeah, no need to keep this. Let's just keep in that theme for a second, shall we? The Shatter Me books. I know! I literally just made the decision like right before filming this video. I know. I think my ability to get rid of the Fallen Kingdoms books in the last unhaul made it so these I was like, I think I'm gonna do it. I think I'm gonna rip it off like a band-aid. Did these consume my heart for a while? Yes. I binge read these in like 3 days. I remember texting Whitney from Witty Novels, just being obsessed, and like she didn't know me at the time. It was one of those things that like you text like a, you know, DM like a creator that you know, and you're like, I know you love this and I love this too because I'm reading it right now, and they're like, cool. Like I know that happens, but I was like that person doing this parasocial relationship thing. I now know her, so like I feel like we're kind of friends, but not because of that. Anyway, yeah, it's weird. I'm not regretting this, but it's very weird because like this Shatter Me cover, truly the end of an era. I had this facing outward on my videos for so long because I remember, because I had so many comments of people being like, your eyes look like Lady Ignite Me cover, because I was always wearing this like reddish orange eye look for like a very long time, and so people are always like, oh my god, it's like your eyes, and I'm like, oh my god. So yeah, this is like a moment that we all need to absorb. I still feel things for the Shatter Me series, but I also feel like I have definitely outgrown them. I have held on to these because I do kind of want to do a reread of just this original trilogy because I don't plan on reading past. I mean, who knows, I could. So I held on to these, but I'm also like, can I get them from my library? And I looked, and yes, I can on Kindle. I never plan on rereading Shatter Me. I hate it. I don't like it. Unravel Me and Ignite Me are good, but I'm also like, okay, I read these in like 2015, maybe even 2014. I was a totally different person. Completely. Will I still like Warner? I don't know. Yeah, so a lot of just like the stakes right on these and like having them and keeping them for those reasons. So I think if I do a reread, which I might do that as a project and like vlog it, like if I do that sometime this year, I will vlog it and all that. But I don't think I need to keep them, which is wild. I mean, they're not signed or anything, I don't think, but I don't think they're indicative of me. Again, I already said like, you know, don't keep books on your shelf to like impress others, but also don't necessarily remove things just to like, you know, not make people judge you, which is like sort of maybe the vibe you're getting from this. But I also just think like, no, if someone's on my shelves, like Shatter Me isn't me anymore, you know? But I can talk about Shatter Me like completely with people and be like, yeah, like Shatter Me is part of my past, and like it's a formative series, just like Fallen Kingdoms was and whatever. But like for me right now, no. Right now the equivalent is like The Winter of the Witch. Like this is who I am now, you know. And it almost is like, I think there's like a whole thing going on here with like the colors. Anyway, yeah, so this is just like end of an era, right? I know, it's wild. I think this whole like move to Chicago thing is making me very much be like, new person, rise from the ashes. I don't know. I don't think that I'm doing that, but maybe subconsciously I am, because getting rid of this is, yeah, it's a lot. Because this series is different from Fallen Kingdoms in that it didn't go down for me like the books. Like when I read them, I loved them, right? Where Fallen Kingdoms, the last 2 books in the series, I was like, pfft, and so it was like easier to get rid of them. This is just like, the time has passed. Our relationship is over. Some people and some books enter your life at a certain time for a certain purpose, and they serve their purpose, and then it's time to move on. Will I maybe revisit them? Yes. Maybe I'll do that during like a Mercury retrograde, do a vlog of reading these on my Kindle. So yeah, they're going. Oh my god, okay. It's crazy, right? It's so weird because they used to be I know, it's so weird. I'm putting them down. Okay, they're going. They're going. Then we have Universe of Wishes, which is a short story anthology collection that I had on my TBR that I had gotten, I think, in an Owl Crate box. Yeah, because it's wrapped. And I decided to get rid of this because I don't like short story anthologies. I don't like them. I always say I'm going to like try them, and I might like them. I don't like them. Have I ever read a short story anthology that I've liked? You're not really supposed to. Like, by design, you're not going to like some of the stories. And so I never want to pick them up. But this deserves to be read by somebody, so I'm gonna get rid of it. But it's just like, short story collections are not for me. Then we have another end of the era, and maybe you guys remember me talking about this book, but that is Blood Red Road by Marwa Young. This is one of my favorite YA science fiction stories. It's like a post-apocalyptic. This girl's brother gets kidnapped. It's almost like a Mad Max Fury Road YA before Mad Max Fury Road was even a thing. And she goes and like saves him. I think she's like a cage fighter at one point. It's really badass, but I heard the rest of the series goes really downhill, and I really liked this. But again, I'm not going to read any more of them. I don't know if it was set as highly in my feelings as it did, because I think I read it in 2014, maybe 2015. I would highly recommend this though. If you haven't read these and you're into like post-apocalyptic, these are really good. This one is really good, but I heard the rest of the series goes downhill, whatever. But again, I think it's time. Like, I've gotten rid of a lot of YA these days, man. It's showing how like not sentimental I am. What is this? And lastly, we have Finnegan of the Rock by Melina Marchetta, and this is another series kind of like the Demon King that I talked about earlier, that I planned on reading them. This was like just fine. These are very classic YA. This is a little bit darker. It's like fairly dark YA, and I plan on reading the rest of them. These were really hyped on BookTube at the beginning when I first joined. I feel like Reagan might have read them, or someone that had been on like OG BookTube had read them and talked about them a lot. But anyway, I've not continued the series. I think, again, one that I maybe read in like 2018 at the absolute latest, but I think it was more like 14 or 15, maybe 16, I don't know. So again, another series, because it is older and more like classic, it will be at the library. So I don't need to hold on to them. Okay, then I have some books that are like kind of on the chopping block that like if I don't have room at my place when I get my new bookshelves, which won't be until like probably mid-March, then these may go. I have 2 TBR books that might go, which is not much, and I still kind of want to read these, and that's The Glass Magician by Caroline Stevermer and Goddess in the Machine by Laura Beth Johnson. This is a YA science fiction, and this is a adult, I'm pretty sure, adult fantasy. I'm not reading the synopses because I tell myself if it's a TBR book and I can't remember the synopses and I want to get rid of it, then I'm not going to read the synopses. So if these don't hold my attention much longer and I keep skimming over them and like reading their books in favor of reading these, they're shorter, so I could technically read them, which is why they're on the chopping block and not going completely. But if there's no room or whatever, like these will be the ones to go TBR wise. Everything else I plan on keeping. Then chopping block for my shelves, only a few. ACOTAR. I do plan on keeping ACOMAF kind of regardless. Okay, so ACOMAF stays regardless, but I've said before that you don't need to keep a whole series on your shelf just because it's a whole series. I know that we as book people, especially BookTube, has really promoted this like whole series, whatever, and some people really like that. That's fine. But if you don't like all the books in the series, you don't actually need to do that. And I'm saying that also to myself because it's a trap that I've also fallen into. I will never reread ACOTAR. I don't like it. I will never reread it. So this could leave. And I've always said that ACOMAF is like a standalone to me. So am I holding on to it now? A little bit hypocritically, because I still kind of am like, well, it's the whole series. Yes, but if there's not room, she's leaving. There's also a highly good chance that I could get rid of ACOWAR. I don't plan on rereading her. I know. And the next books in the series that I know that like they're out now, I plan on getting them from the library because I don't know how I'm going to feel about the fairy smut. So this might go, and then I would just have Akamath, which is true to my emotions. Like, I only love and value Akamath in this series. So keeping her only would be a sound choice, I think. The other series that is also very like, I don't know, is The Cruel Prince. I know, I'm not getting rid of him yet, so calm down. However, I do have like the highly sought after Owl Crate edition. I know. And then I just have like the normal Wicked King. And then I have the like Barnes & Noble exclusive that I don't even know if this is like available, like the black edition. I don't know. I don't hate these. I could. Would I reread them? I wouldn't reread The Cruel Prince. So if anything, I would only keep like the final two. And maybe even just the Wicked King. Maybe it would be another like Akamath situation. I don't know. I don't love these. But I've read them recently enough that I'm still like, I kind of want to keep them. Like, they haven't lost their luster completely yet. But again, chopping block. Chopping block. I wonder how many of you are going to like DM me and be like, I want this if you sell it. I don't know when that'll happen, if it will, but like these are ones that I'm like, if I need to make room, you might go. And then the last series that I don't think is quite on the chopping block, but like almost is. This is the one I'm the most resistant to getting rid of, so I don't think that I will. At very low odds, but who knows. It's the Raven Cycle. I know. I know, it's weird. It's weird. I know, everyone keeps these. So I liked these, but I read the last two? I want to say the last two on audio, and I would do that again if I wanted to reread them. And like, I really liked these, but I liked these a lot. The fandom experience that I had reading these when I was on Tumblr, and there was like a huge fandom around them. There was like a lot of like fan art and stuff. Now that I'm not on Tumblr really, which is crazy, and I'm not really part of the fandom, like they don't sit as highly in my feelings anymore, but I still think I value them enough to have them. I think there's also like this witchy component to them that I really dig. Like they're creepy magical, and I kind of like that still. So those are the ones that are least likely to leave. They have the least amount of danger attached to them, but everything else, watch your back. So that is it for my most recent unhaul. I think I'm done. I think that's it. Barring there being like a disaster and I can't fit as much on my shelves as I think that I can, I don't plan on cutting it down much from here. But what I'm thinking, what a lot of you said in my last unhaul, to maybe like not have as many books to unhaul or whatever, was to possibly do like a little unhaul at the end of each month. Like if I plan on getting rid of some books, saying that in my wrap up, which I might in fact do, because at my next place, like I said, I won't have the space to like pile up a ton of books to like sell in bulk. So it might be like, hey, I'm getting rid of these, I'm gonna post them on Twitter if you want them, blah, blah, blah. So that might be a thing that I do a little bit more consistently rather than having like huge sales of books. So that might be a thing, a more consistent thing. So let me know if you would like that as part of my wrap-ups. But that is it for my unhaul. So hope you enjoyed. If this inspired you to get rid of some books, again, comment below and let me know. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.